Hello, Tab Nation. It's Tom, and today we're going to be doing a presentation here talking about CompTIA A+ certification. So let's jump into that. This is kind of an intro video. This is going to be part one out of a huge series. The book that this is based on is actually around 1,000 pages, and we're kind of going to be going chapter by chapter in each of these videos, so expect a lot more to be coming out. But this is part one, very intro stuff, tools of the trade, and what are all the ports. Some very basic stuff we're going to be talking about here. So first, let's start with what is this certification? Well, it's really if you're trying to get into the IT field, this is something you should definitely look into. Here's a brief description I wrote down. The CompTIA A+ certification is an industry standard for those who wish to pursue a career in IT. The A+ certification, it consists of 2 exams. One is focused on cloud computing mostly, hardware, networking technology, a few other things, while the other one's more about software, operating systems, and just security basics. There are 2 tests that you got to take to get certified, and at the time of filming this video, obviously it could change in the future, it's $232 for a voucher for each test. Now there's some other costs that might come up depending on what route you want to take. You can pre-order re-exams, which give you a discount in case you do fail one, and then the book you can also buy. It kind of varies in price depending on where you get it from, the official website. You can get it from Amazon. Sometimes you can find them used, so I'm not really going to throw a price out for that. So first thing we're going to be talking about are the tools of the trade. Now you probably aren't going to need all these tools. It really is going to depend on what job you're really going to end up getting into, which you're obviously probably not really going to know until you're done your certification and start job hunting. Hopefully a lot of these places will provide the tools for you, but if you want to be a freelancer, you probably should look into buying some of these yourself and at least knowing what they are and how they work. So the first one we're going to talk about is an ESD strap, aka a ground strap, and this is really a safety feature. It's going to clip around your wrist, and then it's going to clip to the outside of the computer, and this is basically just to ground you, to prevent static electricity building up in your body, and then you touch a component and discharge. That could ruin it, and that could be a big problem, especially if you're messing around with the motherboard. You're pretty much down a computer there, and you're going to have to replace that, especially because a lot of places like this, you're just doing IT stuff, so you're not really going to be having like motherboard building technology at your business, I wouldn't think. Flathead screwdriver. Obviously, I hope you all know what this is. And this is, hey, we got to get inside the computer. We might have to take components out. There are a lot of times going to be computers that are screwed together. There are some computers where a lot of stuff just kind of pops off, the side unlatches, but it's always safe to have that screwdriver, especially for the older computers that usually are screwed together. Now on the other side, we should also have the other type of screwdriver that we're pretty familiar with, a Phillips head, aka crosshead screwdriver. Basically needed for the exact same thing. And guess what? One more screwdriver, a torque screwdriver. If you don't know what this is, it's more of a star-shaped bolt or nut that you're using, and these are actually a lot better because you're able to get better, tightening on it to make it a lot more secure, and then it's less likely to also strip the screw just because of the shape. But it's not as common here, at least in the United States. Tweezers. You might need to get at some small components that you need to pull out, a pin or a jumper bay, that kind of stuff. It's a good idea to get the ones here that are kind of insulated, like you see in the picture here, just having that rubber coating on the outside, once again, so you don't discharge through the metal into the component you're messing with. You definitely are not going to want to do that. On the software side, you're really going to need a bunch of software. It depends on your company. You're going to need recovery drive or recovery disk. I prefer drives. They're just easier. A lot of computers are kind of not really having CD or DVD drives these days anymore. But yeah, you should definitely have like every type of operation or operating system that's being used at your company, just because, you know, some people might have upgraded, some people might not have. So you're going to be working with multiple operating systems, and it's also good to know the difference between all the different softwares. What is the difference between Windows 10 and 11? That's going to definitely affect your work. So it's always good to also have the knowledge on each operating system type that is being used within your company. My favorite tool of the trade is compressed air cans. Not only are they fun to play with, but it just feels so good to clean out that computer and see all that dust flying out. Definitely do this outside. You don't want to discharge a bunch of dust into the room. You know, people are going to sneeze, and you know that dust is just going to go into someone else's computer. So definitely this is something you want to do outside. Make sure the weather's nice. It's not supposed to rain. That would be very bad. Multimeter. A digital multimeter is a testing tool used to measure components, electrical components. You're basically looking at either volts, amps, or ohms, and this is just to make sure everything is working properly. And we'll do a little bit more videos on getting into how these different devices work in a little bit more detail. Like I said, this is just an intro, but we'll talk a little bit better in using that stuff. It's kind of the same thing as the last one, power supply tester. This is really for testing out the computer's power supply and making sure it's good. Honestly, that's the one issue I've had with a lot of my computers. It's just the power supply going bad after just a few years, and it causes a lot of weird stuff, including just not starting. So this is definitely a very important thing to have. Needle nose pliers. Kind of going back to the tweezers, this is just a great way for getting hold of objects, holding them for you while you use your other hand to do something. Removing jumpers, if you know what those are. We'll do a video later on when we talk about hard drives a little better on what jumpers are for and all of that. And probably my second favorite, especially at home, is zip ties. This is a great way for cable management. It's great for not just looking good by hiding all your cables, but it's also a safety feature. You know, people are kicking their feet under their desk. Last thing you want is them ripping out like the HDMI cord and bending that port. Flashlights. It can be a little dark inside those computers. Even if you're in a well-lit room, it's always nice to have a light where you can focus it on a specific part, especially if you're trying to look behind something. Usually you're pretty good with these, just like a regular hand light, but there are like flexible lights that are usually really helpful where you can bend them in different ways, attach them to the computer while you work. That way you're little hands-free, or you're not having to get a coworker to stand there and help you. AC outlet ground tester. This is for checking outlets. The computer might be working perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So maybe the outlet is the issue. This is a great way to test if it's going. It's color coded here, the lights light up. I've used these in every house I've ever bought just to test all the outlets real quick. Make sure the electrician has done everything he was supposed to do and everything was grounded properly, because you can have a surge and that could be very bad and actually damage the computer even though it was working correctly before. Network cable tester. This is a electrical device used to verify the electrical connections in a single cable or other wired assemblies. Basic cable testers are continually testers that they basically are verifying the conductive path between the ends of two cables, or the end of each side of the cable, I mean, and it's just making sure everything in that is wired up correctly. Loopback plug tester, kind of doing the same thing here, just diagnosing transmission problems. It's also been known as a warp plug, or rat plug, sorry. It plugs into an Ethernet or serial port and crosses over the transmission line to the receive line so that it can see if the outgoing is being redirected back into the computer for testing. So we're just looping that signal back to the computer to make sure each thing is working correctly. Now, obviously, depending on your job, a lot of these you might not need, or there might be some stuff that I missed on here, but these are pretty much the very basic stuff, and these are the devices you're going to be tested on when it comes to your A+ certification. So these are the ones you at least need to know about. So now, the last thing we're going to talk about is ports. Ports are imports in the know. There's been so many throughout the history, starting with the invention of the computer, all the way up to today, and even with different companies having different ways that they put them on there. There's a lot of ports that you can find on a computer, including the old school VGA. This is where I started my life at with computers. VGA stands for Video Graphics Array, and it's used to transfer video signals. And it does this by acting as a link between your computer and your monitor, or between a computer and sometimes a television screen will have a VGA port. You're probably not going to see these as often, but it's always good. You know, there might be an old computer, an old server where you need to know what this is. So this one's only doing video. It's not doing audio or anything. So that's all it's doing. Next, we got DVI. This is the one that's really the most similar to how the VGA connectors work. It has 24 pins and support for analog, as well as can also do digital video. DVIs can stream up to 1920 by 2800 HD video, or with a dual link DVI connector, you can also support all the way up to 200 or 2560 by 1600 pixels. HDMI. This is probably one of the more well-known ones, at least at the time of filming. This is pretty much what all TVs and monitors are using these days. The HDMI interface allows the port to send high resolution. You know, that's what that HD there is, high definition. So you can, the device commands through an HDMI connector and down a signal it sends a signal through the HDMI cord, each designed to support a video resolution and feature in the HDMI specification. So we're going to get that high definition. And this is pretty much what most people are using these days, at least the time of filming. DisplayPort. This is what I am using currently on my computer. I really like this. It's, you know, very nice. It's designed to connect high-end graphic-capable PCs and displays, as well as home theater equipment, is where it's also very popular. Like HDMI and DVI, DisplayPorts use TMDS, transmission minimize difference signal, which links technology to send high bandwidth video, and it can also send audio signals, which the HDMI can also do, I forgot to mention. So it's nice when you start getting these ports that can also support both video and audio, just versus one. That's one less cord you're having to use. Now this is really popular when it comes to Mac. This is really where it was introduced. It's called, and probably one of the craziest names for a port is Thunderbolt 3 port. I love that name. It's very interesting compared to the other ones. So this allows you to connect your Mac to displays. It even can transfer data quickly between computers and hard drives, as well as this daisy chain external devices using one single connection. That is awesome that it can also do data versus just sound and video. The port looks exactly like the same as what is USB-C, which we're going to talk about. And indeed, the connector is physically the same from the plug and perspective. And indeed, it is a superset of the USB-C, and you can actually use USB-C only devices into a Thunderbolt 3 port on a computer, and it will actually still work. So they're essentially pretty much the same. Audio ports, pretty self-explanatory. Most computers will have the three basic ones you see here in this picture. You got, you know, sound in, sound out, and then you got your microphone. So a fun fact that I wanted to spit out there real quick is if you don't have a microphone but you have headphones, maybe, you know, like earbuds, you can actually plug your headphones into a mic port and it will work as a microphone. Now the quality is probably not going to be the same as having a real microphone, but it's always good in an emergency in case you don't have one but you have headphones. You can actually do that. SPDIF, also known as Sony Philips Digital Interface. This sends audio signals from one device to another without the need to first convert them to analog signal, which can, really lower the quality of audio. The signal is transmitted over either a coaxial or with an RC connector or a fiber optic cable to a TOS link connection. These are pretty much what a lot of people are wanting in their home audio systems, their movie theaters that they might have in their house, just because it's such great audio to have, especially when you're using a fiber optic cable. So this is something I actually wish I had, but I do not. Now I'm sure we're all familiar also with USB or universal serial buses. It's an industry standard. I mean, it's used everywhere, not even just on computers. PlayStations, TVs have them. It's everywhere. So the great thing about this is there are a few different kinds, and a lot of times you can still use certain ones with the other. So we got the USB type A. There's different ones. You might notice this is actually blue. That's a type 3 or USB 3, and that's just like a faster data transfer kind of thing. You got type B. You also have micro USB, which I feel like you don't see as often. And then you have pretty much what's becoming the new standard is USB type C, kind of like that Thunderbolt thing we were talking about there. They're pretty much the exact same thing. So yeah, C is really becoming the standard nowadays, so definitely know how those are going to work versus, like an old type A. eSATA is a port connection for external hard drives. So it's a great way to plug in external hard drives, even if you need an adapter. This is pretty much what you're going to be using for data transfer on an external hard drive. Now, a lot of external hard drives do use USB, but this is the way to go if you can. Another old school one, I'm not sure if these are really put on computers anymore. Maybe some older laptops still have them, but the PS/2, aka mini DIMM, DIM. It's a 6-pin mini DIN connector used for connecting keyboards and mice. So this is very popular back in the day, but it's really kind of cycled out. But you should still know about these just in case your company is using some of the older computers. Serial port, aka DB9 port. This is a serial communication interface through which information transfers in and out seamlessly 1 bit at a time. This is in contrast to a parallel port, which can communicate multiple bits really simultaneously in parallel. So this is also a little bit old school just because it's going to be a little bit slower of a data transfer when it's only doing 1 bit of data at a time. Another old one. Modem port, back in the days of AOL, dial-up phone line to get onto the internet. Once again, really have cycled out. Still good to know. More commonly used today, kind of like the modem port there. It's just a little bit wider, and it's just there to get you online too, usually hooking it up to your router. I hope you guys enjoyed that. This was a very basic intro, but it will be on the test. It is in the book, so you still have to know it. Even if a lot of this stuff is kind of out of date, you should know the history of the computers and everything that goes with them in case there's some old technology that pops up. A lot of banks and governments are still using very old computers and software just because I don't know, they don't upgrade. So in part 2, we will talk about what's on the inside. This was more talking about the outside of the computer. So the next one's going to be what's inside a computer that makes it work. We're going to talk about motherboards, hard drives, graphics cards, how to assemble a computer, how to diagnose the inside, and where all the connections are really plugging in each other. So basically, it's going to be a video on how to build a computer. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, definitely hit me up in the comments below. And let me know what you guys think about this series, if I should continue on with it. If you guys are interested in something in this field, would any of you be interested in looking into A+ certifications and trying to get into the IT field? All right, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you on part 2. Bye.